Hello. It was too nice of weather not to actually come outside and chat for a little bit. As you know, I've been going through some of the letters in the New Testament, and the last three that we went through were the letters from John. John 1, or 1st John, 2nd John, and 3rd John. And what's interesting is when you step back and you not only try not to pull verses out of context, but also chapters and letters within themselves. And I thought it quite interesting that hopefully you can hear me over the wind, but I thought it quite interesting that a lot of scholars believe that these three letters were a packet, if you will, of letters that were delivered to the church. First John being more of a sermon outline, if you will. Second John being a short letter to be read out loud to the church, and its members and but and the third letter, a short letter to actually John's friend and fellow elder Gaius. And so it's interesting if these were, and if it wasn't, it doesn't really change that. But it's interesting because as you get to 3rd John, John's third letter, which is very short, it steps very personal, and there is this struggle going on within the church. And when you read the letter, it talks about an individual who's been stirring up division amongst the believers there and causing a lot of strife. And I can only imagine the stress that might put on the elder, much like pastors today. We have a lot of overburdened pastors, and we need to lift them up, not just in prayer, but any way that we can as well. They are taking on a very weighty role to lead their congregation and be shepherds of the flock. But anyways, as I was reading this, in context, right, because this is a letter to him from John, it was such an encouraging letter to read. And, I could read the whole letter. It's very short. I encourage you to. I'm not going to, but as he starts going on in the earlier verses, he talks about some of the efforts of the brothers, almost missionaries that are going out, and how we should be supporting them. And then he gets into individual who's been, again, the stirring the pot and bringing up strife amongst the believers and challenging them and talking, as John writes, wicked nonsense. Wicked nonsense. Here is a pastor trying to lead his church, and there is just one person who can stir up so much. I guess that's one of the two things that I really want to point out. One is how much damage the voice of one can bring. And I hope that not only is it, something that we can relate to being on the receiving side of that, but also a reminder that we are never that person who's stirring up just wicked nonsense to cause division and cause this strife amongst our brothers and sisters in Christ, or anybody. So one, there's that, what one person can do. But two, in verse 11, he simply says, "Beloved, do not imitate evil, but imitate good." In other words, I know you're being frustrated. I know you just want to, punch back when you're getting punched, and you want to just hit back when you're getting hit. But don't do that, don't do that, guys. And as I read that, it wasn't just like, yeah, that's what we should do, check the box. No, it was just an encouragement for me to sit there and read that letter, and it reminded me so much of how we need community. I mean, here is Gaius just sitting there getting frustrated, I can imagine, with everything that's going on, yet he receives this letter from his brother John that just says, hey, you know what, I hear you, we'll talk about that when I get there. He mentions that in the letter. But don't answer evil for evil, right? Answer it with good. and how much of a breath of fresh air that might have been, even amidst the frustration, to have somebody going, I hear you, I just want to remind you, I'll be there, I'm thinking about you, and just a reminder on how to be, how to represent. So that was it. And again, yeah, if there's a third thing, it's a bonus thing, I guess. Again, just the idea of reading in context, right? We have these verses that we just poach out, like we want to put them on a coffee mug, and some of them great. Maybe they're great reminders, but the meaning and what we can get out of them becomes so much more powerful once we understand the background of the text. So I just encourage you. I'll just leave that there. I just hope it's an encouragement, or I hope it speaks to you. If not, it spoke to me. So enjoy the rest of your evening. My girl's getting hot, so about to throw the chicken on there. So gotta get running. All right. God loves you. So do I.